Welcome to Cody Talks Education, a perspective on education from a non-educator. All right, everyone, and welcome to Cody Talks Education. This is Cody Heitschmidt, the marketing director at Essdack. Maybe the coolest show that I've ever done in 2 or 3 years of broadcasting on radio, on the internet. I've got Gary Vaynerchuk on with us today. We're Skyping in. Gary's in New York somewhere, I'm assuming.
You got it, Code.
Real quick before we dive into it, just be honest, like at the minute 30 mark last night, did you think the Jets were going to pull it off, or were you doubting a little?
I'm a diehard Jets fan. I never thought they were going to win.
Okay.
It's just, when they were up 27-14, I was concerned.
Right, but Gino taking them down the field in the last minute, you were just you knew they were on it.
I mean, I floated to the office today. I'm just excited.
Great football, not necessarily my teams, but great football. So anyway, on to the more important things at hand. Real quick, I want to give a background on my my history as a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary is a real social media guy, in my opinion. There's just a ton of people out there regurgitating crud that isn't really helping anyone with social media, and I really latched on to Gary's message a couple of years ago. I've been a digital marketing consultant and ran an ad agency for the last 8-9 years, and formed a lot of my thought processes off of the things that you say. So I'm really excited to have you on today. Let's talk a little bit about your books, if you would, because I think they're something concrete. Those along with your YouTube videos are things that I think anyone definitely in the marketing field or anyone that wants to understand communications in this day and age should latch onto. Tell me how you came about writing the 3 books that you have out so far.
I appreciate that. The first book, Crush It, happened because I gave a pretty famous keynote, the one that's got the most views on YouTube, back in 2008, the Smurf it up, stop doing stuff you hate talk that really kind of put me on the map. By the time I got off stage, 5 to 6 different publishers had emailed me within an hour of that talk asking if I would write a book about that basic subject. And that led to Crush It. I signed with HarperCollins. I wrote it. I banged it out. I got it out there. It did extremely well. It definitely even built up my brand equity even more, which led to writing The Thank You Economy, which was a very important book for me to write, very, very much ingrained in the religion of how I think about the world, doing the right things applied in the digital world. And then Jab, 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 Right Hook, which comes out in a month, is very focused on being a utility. It's a blueprint of how to be successful.
Very cool. I have the first 2 and have the third one on order, and like you said, I think they're books that everyone should read to really understand the processes, as opposed to the mindset that's behind it. I couldn't agree with the things that you put in there more, because of the fact that I'm at Essdack now. We're an education-based service center. I think that your message, I haven't figured out the logistics of how I try and make this happen across the world. I think that kids should be listening to Gary Vaynerchuk and the things that he says. So the question I want to throw out to you today, the question that I want to hear your answer to really more than anything else, is if you walked out on stage for a keynote and it was 5,000 8th to 12th graders out there, so not necessarily people already ingrained in marketing a product or marketing a service, but what would you say to them about their future, and how the message that you spread pertains to their future?
I would first and foremost, I spoke to a group of teenagers not too long ago, and the thing that everybody came up to me afterwards and said this was the most breakthrough talk for them in the years that I taught at this age group. And the reason that it was, and the reason I think I'm good at public speaking, is I created context with them, right? So the first thing I would do is talk at their level, right? Talk about what pop culture is really going on in their world, what they care about, the artists they care about, the platforms they care about. And so I would speak on their level, first and foremost. And I think that's really important to think about, because I think one humongous problem at the education level is that there's a lot of talking down to people, right? And I think this happens in life, but it naturally happens with students because we default into thinking that we're their superior, we're their elder, we know more, and we're talking down. And very honestly, and my brother AJ sitting here and shaking his head, and listen, I've said a lot of smart things for the last 10 years. He never shakes his head because it's most of the stuff he's used to me hearing me say. And it's fun to hear him shake his head, and I'll tell you why he's doing it. My brother, unlike me, hung around with smart kids in high school and in college. And, a lot of times, I mean, this is a very strong statement, but I think there's a lot of 8th or 9th graders, that are smarter than their teachers at that moment, live at that moment. At that moment, at 15, are brighter than the 49-year-old person speaking on the subject. And more importantly, they have more context to the relevance to them of how this issue applies to them, and more importantly, where it's going. And so, first and foremost, I would talk to them at their level. I would talk to them instead of down to them. It's kind of why I became a big breakout in the wine world, right? I spoke to people about wine instead of down to them.
Absolutely.
The next thing I would really attack is their legacy, right? I'm hot on this. I would really get them to understand. Listen, I've spoken now 4 or 5 times to students at a young age at this demo, and I'm an F student, right? So I'm coming in with a chip on my shoulder. I don't believe in a lot of the infrastructure. I don't believe that a lot of things we're doing are preparing our kids for the reality of the actual marketplace. And so I mix humility with aggressiveness. I spoke at a very high-end New York private school, which pumps out only kids that go to Yale and Harvard. And my opening line to them was, "You guys are soft." and really challenge them, because I'm like, you guys think you're tough crap and you're going to be so amazing. I'm like, but I've hired a bunch of kids from Harvard recently that suck because they don't have the backbone, because they've never had somebody say no or have never failed before. Because if you're a smart kid and you understand the system, you play it all the way through, right? I mean, you hear nothing but kids talk about how they got straight A's and never did anything or good grades. So that would be important. But what I really talk to them is about the things that I think matter, which is self-awareness, empathy, thinking big picture. How do I get somebody at 15 to actually think about being 30 or 40 or 70 or 90? And that's very hard. I mean, it's hard for me to get 35-year-olds right now to think about being 70, right?
Absolutely.
To make decisions that are going to impact them. I'm not worried about their next 20 years, which is the far majority of what everybody worries about with kids at that age.
Right. We locked up just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, most people are worried about their next 20 years, and I'm much more worried about their last 20 years. You know what I mean, Cody?
Absolutely.
I want them to make decisions that are for life, not for the next 5 minutes.
Which doesn't necessarily, I'm going to add my 2 cents, I guess, and then get your response to it. I think that one of the mistakes that we make sometimes as parents and as a system towards kids in the U.S. is asking them what they want to be when they grow up, and then referencing it to, who's going to write you a paycheck. I've taught my kids that I want them to tell people happy. When people walk up to them and say, "What do you want to be when they grow up?" I want my kids to say happy. To me, that's legacy. That's the way you're going to create legacy, as opposed to at 6 deciding that you're going to be a dental hygienist. I just don't. I think that's a mistake that we make with our kids. And I kind of want your thoughts on that as well.
I agree.
When you were 5, nobody, did you ever tell anyone that you wanted to run a video blog about wine? Was that your answer?
It's absurd.
But it kind of worked out.
And so absurd. And so, it's funny. And I think, given my whole thesis of jab, 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 right hook, right, which is give, and then ask, I want to take a slight version on your statement, which I think is a great statement I agree with. My little tweak on it that I'm definitely going to push to Misha and Xander is, I want to make other people happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that I teach my kids that that's a way to be happy. That
Agreed.
sitting in a selfish manner is really a false happiness that just doesn't doesn't actually pull it off. Let's go on and talk about the book a little bit, because I'm pretty excited to get my hands on it. I like the fact maybe more of a steps to take kind of book. Was that what you meant by it's more of a utility book?
Yes. I was really affected by the negative reviews on Amazon of Thank You Economy, which were right, it was a philosophical book, right? And I wanted to write that. I wanted to like kind of show my kind of intellectual chops. And I think my thesis is right and will play out more and more. And I think Thank You Economy becomes more and more classic over the next 10, 15, 20 years within the marketing circles. But I really wanted to teach people how to create content for the internet that we all live in, which is on social networks. And so I gave a lot of thought to this book, and I wanted this to be a book that sat on people's desks because they really literally went to it when they needed to post something on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest. So yes, it is a utility. It is a textbook. I mean, it could be taught in class.
I would firmly not. I didn't put any negative reviews on Amazon because I think the philosophy has got to come first, or the textbook is literally just a to-do list for people that they don't understand the backbone behind it, why they're doing it. So I'm applauding it. I was excited. I love the Thank You Economy and Crush It both. So now I'm excited for a little twist on that. When can we actually get our hands on Jab, 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 Right Hook?
It comes out November 26th.
Okay, great timing. I can ask for it as
so.
like a Black Friday Christmas present or something.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was good timing to do around the holidays for sure.
Awesome. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. I really, I said it once before, but I think the message that you put out, your use of the word hustle, which I don't think, you either have people that tie that back to a football coach yelling it, or back to Hustle and Flow, the movie. And I love your context of that word. I love that you walk up to kids and tell them that they're soft because they're not actually going for it and going after what they want. And
Cody, we're living in a world where people get 8th place trophies.
Yeah. You got too much going on today to get me started on that, Gary. So,
all right, man. Listen, thank you for your time. I wish you well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Gary Vaynerchuk there, folks, author of The Thank You Economy, Crush It, and Jab, 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 Right Hook, coming out November 26th. Gary's take on education here on Cody Talks Education.